a 10, and 10 is hit as well as she was coming back down the track.
Spot right there, and he just got behind in his steering.
Yeah, he got too far to the right and coming off the corner right.
It's way out of line. Look at him, 3 wide in the pack. Christopher Bell.
Red flags. These are the most common sights in NASCAR races. A red flag is displayed during a race when there has been an accident or when the track conditions are deemed to be dangerous enough to warrant stopping the race for reasons relating to participant safety. This is a compilation of incidents which occurred over the years and prompted the raising of a red flag. Bobby Allison went airborne close to the track's start-finish line, which caused the protective catch fence to be torn down for almost 100 feet. Allison's car was able to be deflected by the 2 large steel cables that were installed behind the fence in order to prevent it from plunging unchecked into the spectator grandstands. In the event that this had transpired, the accident had the potential to be as catastrophic as the one that occurred at Le Mans racetrack in 1955. The accident caused debris, which led to additional vehicles becoming involved in the collision. During the final lap of the race, leader Ryan Newman was involved in a collision with another driver. After challenger Ryan Blaney drove into the wall at nearly 190 miles per hour and flipped Newman's Ford onto its roof, the driver of the Ford, Ryan Newman, suffered injuries that were serious, but not life-threatening. When Newman's car was hit more than once by the approaching Corey LaJoie, it was already flipping over and shooting flames in every direction. This is without a doubt one of the most spectacular and violent collisions that anyone has ever seen. There is no possible way for a human being to survive an impact like that. When Waltrip crashed into the wall, it was one of the most violent collisions in the history of NASCAR. The record of Michael Waltrip, when the car starts to skid and slide on the outside, it collides with the concrete wall nearly head-on, and the concrete barrier cuts the vehicle in half. It seems impossible that Waltrip could have survived in the wreckage of his car after it exploded into hundreds of pieces. His car was a total loss. Waltrip did not only manage to live through the accident, but he also went on to win the Daytona 500 twice and establish his own racing team. Following a collision that involved Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Custer on lap 25 of 68, the Echo Park, Texas Grand Prix was brought to a halt under the red flag so that the track could be cleared of the car and debris. The drivers, who were both able to walk away from the crash unharmed, stated that the limited visibility on the track was to blame for the accident. The fact that Custer could barely see more than 1 foot in front of the car is made abundantly clear in the replay of the cameras that were mounted on both his and Truex Jr.'s race cars. Custer relayed the information to the FS1 broadcast team. During the Sprint Cup race at Watkins Glen International, the red flag was waved after a frightening accident involving multiple cars. On lap 57 of 90, Ryan Newman lost control of his Chevrolet after he collided with the rear of Greg Biffle's vehicle. Michael McDowell collided head-on with Newman's vehicle after the latter collided with the inside guardrail, which propelled Newman back onto the track and into the path of McDowell's vehicle. After that, McDowell got airborne for a short period of time before colliding with another guardrail. As a result of what happened, there was a large field of debris that was scattered along the track, and the guardrails that Newman and McDowell each struck sustained significant damage. Because of this, NASCAR was forced to stop the Cheez-Its 355 so that track workers could make repairs. Alex Bowman and Danica Patrick were also brought in for questioning. Nobody was hurt, including the drivers who were involved. The incident took place near the beginning of Stage 2. The number 78 Chevrolet, driven by Jesse Little, lost control, spun to the left, and crashed into the wall. The Chevrolet, driven by Josh Williams, which bore the number 92, veered to the right, collided with the outside wall, and then rebounded towards number 78. The final vehicle to become involved was the number 13 Toyota, driven by Matt Jaskell, which slid in reverse and crashed on top of the number 78 car. After the incident, all 3 drivers went up to the infield care center to check on their respective injuries. After conducting an assessment, the crew staff determined that none of the patients required any further treatment and discharged them. Both Jeff Gordon and Jeff Burton were involved in the accident. The number 77 car, driven by Sam Hornish, delivered a heavy hit. the car driven by Gordon crashed through the Armco barrier. After completing the fourth turn of the race at Talladega in the spring of 2009, a relative unknown named Brad Keselowski moved to the inside of the track and started to pass Carl Edwards for the lead. Edwards made the effort to prevent Keselowski from passing, and the rest, as they say, is history. Since then, the two drivers have been engaging in a heated argument. It is debatable as to who is primarily to blame for their ongoing series of wrecks at tracks such as Atlanta and Gateway. But no one can deny that the terrifying nature of this wreck is eye-opening. NASCAR is undoubtedly thankful that no fans were killed during the incident, despite the fact that flying debris caused 7 spectators to sustain injuries. Since then, several drivers have remarked that it is only a matter of time before a fatality occurs at one of the restrictor plate tracks due to flying cars. Although the races at Pocono Speedway are frequently boring, the track has more than enough potential to produce spectacular crashes. The collision that Elliott Sadler was involved in at Pocono in 2010 is one of the most severe in the annals of NASCAR, as measured by the force of the impact. Sadler was able to walk away from the incident shaken but otherwise unharmed, thanks to the safety features of the vehicles, as well as some luck. This video focuses primarily on Kurt Busch's accident. Even though it wasn't nearly as bad as what Sadler went through, Busch's accident was still pretty spectacular to watch. The car driven by Sadler's exploded, sending the engine flying out of the compartment where it was housed. At the Daytona International Speedway, Brandon Jones had a hair-raising ride through the grass, which ended in a crash. Jones was running near the front of the pack when he was struck from behind, which sent him careening off the track and into the surrounding grass. Jones' vehicle then spun back onto the track, where Cody Ware collided with him, which resulted in the wave of the red flag being displayed at Daytona. Daniel Suarez had a spectacular crash. At the end of lap 346, both his night and that of Chris Buescher came to an emotional climax. Upon exiting turn 4, the Chevrolet driven by Suarez became uncontrolled and slid into the path of the Ford driven by Chase Briscoe. Suarez was knocked out of control and sent spinning down the front stretch after the Ford driven by Todd Gilliland was the initial vehicle to hit him. Just behind Buescher, Suarez slid sideways in an attempt to avoid contact with Buescher, and as a result, the two drivers collided, sending Buescher's Ford careening across the front stretch turf. The right front suspension of Buescher's car broke off, and the tethers that were supposed to keep the wheel from flying off instead held the wheel and sent it under the car, which caused the car to barrel roll several times before finally coming to a stop on its roof. The race was immediately stopped and given the red flag by NASCAR. The safety crew arrived on the scene in less than 25 seconds, and by that time, Buescher had already disconnected the window net, indicating that he was okay. The curbing on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course broke apart in turn 6 of lap 78 of the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, which was scheduled to have 82 laps total. As a result, multiple vehicles were damaged during the event. Earlier in the race, difficulties arose as a result of the curbing, which had debris wedged beneath it. NASCAR worked on the curbing after a late race debris caution in the same area of the track. Joey Logano's number 22 Team Penske Ford, which ended up crashing hard into the tire barrier, William Byron's number 24 Hendricks Motorsports Chevrolet, and Martin Truex Jr.'s number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota all sustained damage after hitting the curb at the same time, while Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe were battling for the lead. Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, James Davison, Justin Haley, Ryan Preece, and Daniel Suarez were among the other drivers who were involved in the chain reaction accident. After being involved in a crash on the very last lap of the Drive for COPD 300, Kyle Larson's Chevrolet went airborne and crashed into the front stretch catch frame at Daytona International Speedway. The accident was caused when the leader, Regan Smith, tried to block a move by Brad Keselowski off turn 4, which caused the crash. During the 12-car collision, both a tire and the engine of Larson's car made it over to the grandstand side of the catch fence. Tony was able to avoid the pileup by heading down to the bottom of the apron and crossing the finish line under a caution flag. When a shower of debris from the wrecked car of the young driver Kyle Larson, who was involved in a massive multi-car crash, flew up into the grandstands, it caused a number of spectators to be injured, and several of them to sustain serious injuries. The engine from Larson's vehicle went through the steel cables that were forming the catch fence and ended up on the walkway just a few steps away from the first row of seats. A variety of other fragments resembling shrapnel continued their ascent over the succeeding rows.